Yo, what's good? What's good, everybody? What's good? Welcome and wake up, everybody. This is your coffee and sports in the morning show with my dynamic duo on the morning show, my boy Mo Better. How you doing this morning, Mo?
Feeling blessed, coach. Ready to go.
Ready to go, ready to go. So we got Gene already in the chat. Got his coffee. Got his getting ready for this morning show. So man, we got 2 days away from free agency. We got a lot of names getting into different teams, but we're definitely gonna start off the morning with an interesting topic. So I was thinking about yesterday when I was watching some stuff yesterday about basketball, right? So it made me want to bring up a topic. I'm gonna start with you first, Mo, because I ain't gonna give out mine. I don't think nobody expect me to expect this name to come up. Give me your underrated player, NBA player of the 2000s era.
Of the 2000s?
Yeah, of the 2000s era.
Oh, wow, there's so many. Off the top of my head, you know what? I'm going to give you a name that he started in the 90s. A lot of people won't get this. He didn't make like a bunch of all-star teams, but everywhere he went, he was really impactful. His teams won. They didn't ultimately win a title, but when he got there, they were always better. He did win a title early in his career.
Okay.
But he wasn't a star then. He was a guy that worked his way up from being a role player to a star player. I'm going to say Sam Cassell.
Okay.
I'm going to say Sam Cassell. He started in the 90s, but he actually played through the 2000s.
Yeah, 2000s, yep.
And he really did make every team he went to that much better. It's not a household name. You'd have to be an NBA fan name to appreciate him, but I'm going to say Sam Cassell.
All right. So other than that, got the player that this team sucked so long. They didn't win a lot of games, but during that time, 2000s era, if you don't win a lot of games, you're not going to be put in the All-Star game. It just is what it is. He went to my Houston Rockets. He went to my Houston Rockets as well. He has some injury history, but this guy has to be one of the most underrated 20-point per game scorers. Just because this team sucked so bad and he ended up going to the Rockets in 09 and 010, I'm going to go Kevin Martin. If you remember Kevin Martin.
In the Sacramento Kings.
They used to play for Sacramento. They had the funny, awkward little shot that goes in. But it was amazing how he's able to get to the free throw line. He had that little rip through move. He used to average 7 free throws a game. Man, the dude averaged 20 points on a bad Sacramento Kings team. He averaged 20 points for damn near 4 straight years. He averaged 20 points. He ended up going into Houston Rockets, averaging 21 and 23 points, and then he started to decline. His last year in Houston, he did go to OKC, to a better team before they end up losing to the Memphis Grizzlies. So when I was thinking about that, and I was looking at Kevin Martin's game, I was like, I gotta bring this up. Who was the most underrated player in the 2000s era? And when I looked at Kevin Martin and how good Kevin Martin was, how good he could get to the free throw line, and the awkward shot that he shot, but he shot it at least 36% from three. And I'm just saying, man, Kevin Martin was like actually good at drawing the fouls. Like him and Kevin Durant was the first people to do kind of the rip through move to get a foul. Now you're not getting that call like that anymore. But I thought about that. I say, let me bring this up. And so now we're about to get to the real. Go ahead.
No, that's a good one. I remember watching Kevin Martin play, and his game was really fluid. The only thing that was ugly was the shot. The jump shot is one of the ugliest. It's probably every bit as ugly as Sean Marion's shot. But he was a really underrated player, really good player.
Yep. So we about to get to the real stuff right here. So Russell Westbrook, report came out that I saw. Likely he stays at LA with the Clippers. or do you see him fit somewhere else? Where do you see Russell Westbrook going? Do you see him staying with the Clippers, or you see him moving and going somewhere else?
I think he stays with the Clippers for two reasons. One, he fit with them. He actually gave them a change of pace. You think that when you have Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, two wings who can both create their own shots, bring the ball up, they don't really play fast. Paul George and Kawhi Leonard play more of a half court style game. They attack in the half court sets. So I thought that Russell Westbrook, he gave them a different pitch. If they were pitchers, he gave them a fastball. So I thought it was good that they had somebody that could speed the tempo up. Russ is better on the Clippers because George and Kawhi are not ball dominant. It didn't work out with the Lakers because you put a ball dominant player with another ball dominant player. That was never going to work. And the idea of Russell Westbrook spotting up in the corner, you literally set the man up for failure. You set him up for failure. So I like the fact that Ty Lue didn't ask him to change anything. He told him to be aggressive, cut back on the turnovers. And I actually thought he played really well for the Clippers.
Yeah, I thought he did too.
Some people, I've heard the rumors he could go to Miami. I don't really like him in Miami. I think they play a different style that wouldn't really fit his skill set. I think the Clippers, I think he's found his NBA home to me for the rest of his career because Ty Lue, another thing, Ty Lue is the kind of coach, he can actually rein Russ in. I've seen Russ have great games for the Clippers. I've also seen when he struggled in a half, Ty Lue does not hesitate to sit him down, let him gather himself before he gets back into the game. And I don't think a lot of coaches can get away with doing that with Russell Westbrook without him losing it. So the fact that he respects Ty Lue and they have a good relationship, a good working relationship, the Clippers is where he needs to stay. I think that's the best fit for him. Not to mention, you say this all the time, Coach. It's a what if conference. Well,
Yeah.
what if they stay healthy?
That's
If they stay healthy, they're as good as anybody in the West. If we're going to go with the if factor.
Yep. I always say that if they stay healthy, that's probably the best what if team in the Western Conference. The best what if team in the Western Conference. We know they lost. They had so much bad luck. You can argue that's an organization that's really cursed as well. But since they did go to the Western Conference Finals, only with Paul George having his best playoff career, Reggie Jackson was able to average about 15 a night in the playoffs. But other than that, I think you're right. I mean, it's right there. I mean, Russell Westbrook he had awesome playoffs, pretty much. He had a pretty good playoffs. He stepped up in the playoffs. It just wasn't enough firepower. Just wasn't enough firepower at the end of the day. I thought he did well. I mean, when he didn't play well on the offensive side, he gave it all he got on the defensive side of the ball. And one thing about Russell Westbrook, hey, he not going to let his offense hamper his defense. He's not going to let his offense hamper his defense. And that's one thing you would get out of Russell Westbrook. If he's missing all the shots, if he's not making shots, yes, people can laugh at him all you want. But if he's not missing shots, he's going to play defense. We saw that in game one. He wasn't making shots. But guess what? He was impactful on the defensive side of the ball when you needed him. He got every loose ball. He got every rebound. And that's what you need. You see a lot of players these days, when they're not making shots, they're walking back on defense. They're not trying to play defense. They're frustrated. But Russell Westbrook, if he's not making shots, he's better. He's very good on defense. He's very active on defense. And when he's driving to the basket and making plays and making shots, and combined with that defense, it's tough to really stop Russell Westbrook. And Tyronn Lue, I liked the way he used them last year. And it's just unfortunately you couldn't see Paul George on the floor. Kawhi Leonard went out in game 2, unfortunately. You can make an argument. If Kawhi Leonard goes in either one of these games, the Clippers could win. The Clippers definitely could win these games. Phoenix probably is out. Phoenix probably is out in the first round. If Kawhi at least plays, Phoenix probably is out in the first round. So,
do you think it's another team that he fit? Do you see another team that fits him other than the Clippers? Because I really think when you factor in system, coach, opportunity, I don't think there's a better team for him when you factor those three things in.
No, I think the perfect fit is the Clippers. I don't see a team in the East that fits them. I don't think Miami is an actually good spot for them. I don't think they're a good spot. Even though they're moving on from Kyle Lowry. I don't think Kyle Lowry will be in the Heat jersey next year. Really don't think that. But I just think Tyronn Lue, the momentum he built off Tyronn Lue last year, and the strong playoff performance that he actually showed, I believe he's definitely needs to stay in LA with the Clippers and just hope that Paul George and Kawhi Leonard can play at least half of 60 games in a year. At least if they can give you 60 games in a year this year and play in the whole playoffs, I'll say that's the best what-else team in the NBA. Best what-else team.
And don't worry about the numbers, right, Coach? So to me, give Terrence Mann more minutes. Play Terrence Mann more. I don't care if Kawhi averages 25 or if he averages 20. I need him to get to the playoffs 100%. Same for Paul George. I don't think the Clippers are playing for the reg. You know what? Maybe they should be more like the Heat. You play in the regular season, you compete, but you need to be geared up and kind of zoned in and make it all about the postseason. So that would go into another topic we talked about yesterday with Chris Paul and the Warriors. I don't think the Warriors signed Chris Paul or traded for Chris Paul for the regular season. I think they got in for the playoffs. They wanted another pitch, and Chris Paul plays at a different tempo. If he's going to run your second unit, then he's great at manipulating mismatches. He's still one of the best pull-up shooters in the mid-range in the game. One of the best or the highest IQs in all the NBA as a floor general. And I think in certain matchups, he's going to be part of their closing lineup. So a lot of people go, you're not going to have Chris Paul, Steph, and Clay on the floor. You will if the matchups dictate that. You will if the match and if they dictate that, because remember, most of the time when you play Golden State, they make you change your lineups. Change your lineup. So I disagree with the notion they can't play together. If they can dictate pace and how you play, your bigs or one of your bigs is going to come off the floor.
Oh, they're going to always find a way to make it work. They're going to always find a way to make it work. They're going to always find a way to make you adjust to what they can do, what they do. And like I say, if they go small, ain't nowhere in the world you'll try to go big with them. You'll try to go small with them. They'll make you try to go small, match up with them. But other than that, hey man, like I say, I don't think the Clippers will be able to play a whole season together. You just haven't seen it. You just haven't seen them do it, and nothing can convince you to do it until they show you they can do it. Actually, like it depends on it just depends on record this year. If they're healthy for half of the year, and say if they 20 games up over 500, I would consider literally start sitting them some games to save them, because the most important thing is the playoffs. Most important thing is the playoffs. You need to beat out. You need your guys there in the playoffs. If they're there in the playoffs throughout the whole playoff scenario, they can give these teams a scale. They can be borderline Western Conference at best. With Paul George and Kawhi Leonard and Russell Westbrook, you can be borderline Western Conference at best. But the problem is they're never going to be on the floor. And we've seen it too many times. So
curse, like you said, Coach.
Yep, curse. Just the curse. It's the curse. Portland. That's that Portland curse right there. So other than that, we got the change NBA scenario. I like this. It's called Change NBA History. Select one scenario. And I like he just sent this to me as soon as I got on. So here we go. We got the you ready for this one, Mo?
Oh yeah.
We got what if Derrick Rose never got hurt? You got Chris Paul joins the Lakers. You remember that trade that they didn't have no
David Stern.
They didn't have no Jim at that time.
David Stern literally jumped in. He literally jumped in, Coach, and said, "This trade is uneven." He said it was come on, man. That's none of your business.
Kevin Durant stayed in OKC. Greg Oden stayed healthy. You have Allen Iverson win a ring. Dwayne Wade winning an MVP. You have Carmelo Anthony drafted by the Pistons. Yep, he had an opportunity to be drafted by the Pistons. Maybe Carmelo Anthony career is different different, winning titles with the Detroit Pistons in 2003 era before the Pistons botched a pick with Darko Milicic. They should have drafted Carmelo Anthony. Carmelo Anthony's career would have definitely went different, winning titles. You got what Michael Jordan playing in 2021, and the one of them all, LeBron James playing in the 90s era. Mo, choose one of those.
So, they're all really good. I mean, off that list, out of the two that stand out the most to me, I would say Carmelo to the Pistons. That one stands out a lot, and just because I'm a fan and wanted, it's a what if. I would have loved to see what happened if Derrick Rose never got hurt.
Oh, Stone. Yeah.
Those two stand out the most to me because I think Carmelo's is probably the biggest one. I'll go with that one because I think that has a domino effect. And I said this before in both conferences. If Carmelo goes to the Pistons, and if you know Larry Brown, the history of Larry Brown, he don't like rookies. He don't mess around with rookies like that. So you already know Melo's not going to start. But with that talent, think about that. You'd have Melo coming off the bench on a team with Billups, Rip Hamilton, Tayshaun Prince, both the Wallaces, Sheed and Ben. They had Lindsey Hunter, probably one of the best on-ball defenders in the NBA. 84 feet, he's up in your face. But think about what happened. That would have put Melo in a unique situation because Melo came into the league like LeBron. They were both made to play right away. They could play. Yep. They had the ability. They were NBA ready. But what if he was NBA ready, but he was more of a six-man, and he had those vets like Rip, like Billups and Ben Wallace in his head? I'm not saying Melo was a disappointment because he wasn't, but I think that his career takes a major shift. He would have won a title as a six-man with the Pistons. But what would have changed the course of the conference would be that particular series they had where LeBron goes for 48. I think he scored like 29 in the fourth.
Yep.
A second-year Carmelo Anthony, he would have offset what LeBron did. Yep. Bron couldn't guard Melo either. Couldn't guard him at all.
Nope.
Especially in his prime when he was young. Melo would just give him work. Melo would have offset everything LeBron did. That series would have changed. Cleveland doesn't go to the finals. What happens is San Antonio and the Pistons, they have a rematch. By the way, if Melo's on the Pistons when they lost to the Spurs, that's a different series. They're not losing that series.
Yep.
That's a totally different series. So Melo to me is the best one because it impacts both conferences.
Yeah, definitely. You can't go wrong with that. My pick was what if Derrick Rose never got injured. I mean, we all said Derrick Rose. I mean, that dude was unstoppable, MVP level. But I blame that on on Thibodeau. How do you leave him in the game when the game is over with? The game was over with. You was up 99-85. You decide to leave him in the game. And 1 minute to go, you trust the Sixers to score 14 points in a row.
Right.
In a row on you when you was one of the top defensive teams in the NBA, and you trust literally the 76ers to score 14 in a row. Then it happened again. I believe in Portland when he tore his meniscus tear again. He re-aggravated again. He did it again. It was just bad luck for Derrick Rose. Just really, really bad luck for Derrick Rose right there. And this dude was a high flyer. I remember it was a play when he got the ball in Phoenix and he just two-handed it up right up over Steve Nash.
Yeah.
Nash jumped and he two-handed it. I think that was Gordon Dragic. It had to be one of those guys that he jumped up and he actually two-handed it over him. So other than that, man.
He was special, Coach.
He was, yes. He was very
special. It's a lot of times we get caught up in similarities. Him and Russ are very similar. But the separation is D Rose has a handle. The thing about Russ doesn't actually have a great handle. What he has is he has that burst. If you reach on Russ, he's at the rim. D Rose could break your ankles and then go dunk on your center.
Yep.
Like, Derrick Rose was that dude. Like I remember actually having the argument when he won the MVP. Somebody brought up Russ's stats for that same year. And they're very similar. But what I was pointing out is Derrick Rose was the best player on the Bulls. There
Yep.
wasn't the second option on the Bulls was really more of a defensive player. Like if you think about how those Bulls teams were built, Coach, they were built very similar to the way the Sixers were built around Iverson. It was Iverson and a bunch of dogs that played defense and did all the dirty work around him. The Bulls were built the same way around Derrick Rose. That might have been their flaw because when they went up against the Heat, LeBron would guard him maybe the last 5 minutes of each game, and they were tight games, and they were able to like cut him off. And there wasn't really a strong second option on that team. But you're picking Derrick Rose, Coach. That's a great pick because I say this. Derrick Rose would have won more than one MVP. I also think that Derrick Rose would eventually, like some dudes do, I think he would have left Chicago to give himself a better chance to win a title.
Yep. At that time, you had an argument who's the second best player between Luol Deng and Joakim Noah.
Mm-hmm.
That was literally his second and third best players. There wasn't nothing. There wasn't 20-point scores. You had goddamn, you had Joakim Noah, MVP candidate at once. That's how I mean, again, and he's a defensive guy. He was
very good defender. Very good defender.
More of a defensive guy. Luol Deng was like no more than a 15-point per game score. That was it. If you cut off Derrick Rose, you beat Chicago. But just because Derrick Rose could be consistent every single night and they play defense really good, you just couldn't beat. The only team that could actually beat them was Miami. That was it. That was the only team that can actually beat them. So other than that, Dez in the building.
What's up, Dez?
How you doing this morning, man?
Man, y'all, man, the West Coast and the Central Times, man. My God, it's different for me, but I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. The Rockies lost again.
Oh Lord, yeah,
5-0. So I did a couple of videos yesterday, but Kamani McClain's cleared, so I'm happy with that. And CU's around the football's around the corner, so we'll see what happens.
So which of these scenarios you would choose? You have Derrick Rose never got hurt. Chris Paul joining the Lakers. You remember that time the trade got vetoed and everybody was complaining and David Stern just didn't want it to happen. Kevin Durant staying in OKC. Greg Oden staying healthy. Allen Iverson winning a ring. Dwayne Wade winning the MVP. Carmelo going to Detroit in the 2003 draft. That's why I say always draft a better player. Don't draft the need. Draft the better player.
100%.
Don't draft the need. And Detroit feel like they need to draft the need. Guess what? That hurted them. That hurt them. They did get a championship out of it, but it did hurt. It did hurt them because guess who went the very next pick? Carmelo Anthony went the very next pick. Michael Jordan played in 2021, and LeBron James playing in the 90s. Which scenario are you choosing?
I gotta go with the Derrick Rose. Derrick Rose, if he was not hurt, my goodness, that guy, I think he evolved the game in my opinion. Because you think about it, at that time, after Allen Iverson and everything, and Stephon Marbury, there wasn't really a true point guard like Derrick Rose. When I first watched him, I'm like, this guy is slashing in the lane, and just what he did with that Bulls team. If he was never hurt, I mean, Mo, you touched on it. He would have won at least 2 or 3 more MVPs. Probably put that team on the map to probably put him for a chance of contention. And even if he didn't, he would have went somewhere to get a ring. I mean, he evolved the game. He made me love the game of basketball, in my opinion, just because the way he off the dribble and the 3-point. I mean, even the dunking, that surprised me. He could dunk. I was like, wow, that guy, he's special talent. He brought Chi-Town, basketball spirit back again.
That's what I was getting at, Dez. That's why that's such a great pick. He made them relevant since Michael Jordan. He was the only guy that really made them relevant since Michael Jordan. He gave them hope that they hadn't had in years with what he did. So that's a great pick because of the impact he had on that city and the league.
And then Chris Paul, to chime in the Keys comment, if he wasn't vetoed, I think he would have had a ring. Chris Paul would have had a ring by now too. I think so. I think he would have had a ring. But now the guy's getting older and he's trying to get a ring. I don't even think he'll get one, especially with these dang Warriors. But I think, like I said, Derrick Rose, I think if he wasn't hurt, Coach and Mo, man, we would be talking about this guy at least. He would at least got 2 rings, at least a ring.
Fellas, if Chris Paul doesn't get vetoed, that's Chris Paul, Kobe, and Pau Gasol.
Yep.
Come on, man. Look, Pau and Kobe was a problem, but you give me CP3 in his prime with those two, oh, we're winning more than 2 rings.
That's a 2K team right there.
People didn't know that New Orleans didn't have a GM at the time. They didn't really hatch it.
The league was actually in control of them.
Yeah, so the league was David Stern. David Stern was actually in control of the team at that time because they didn't have an actual GM. So that's why the trade was actually.
So what happened was, I think you guys already noticed, somebody underneath approved the trade, right? Initially, you heard about the trade. Yeah. David Stern heard about that, took a look at that. David, no, we're not doing that. That's not gonna happen. David Stern was like, we don't want back Lamar Odom and some other dudes. We're not doing that.
Yep. So we gotta go on two NFL topics right here before we get back to the NBA. This is where the good stuff at. So we got top 5 receivers of all time. And when you think about top 5 receivers, I think about the receivers I actually looked at. But the top 5 receivers, man, if you ain't got Jerry Rice, who's the best receiver of all time, I got Terrell Owens, Randy Moss, Marvin Harrison, and I'm gonna throw Steve Largent up in now. Those are my top 5 wide receivers. Mo, go ahead.
I think if you don't have 4 of those guys on your list, your knowledge of football is suspect. You don't have to appreciate the comment, but it's a fact. Your knowledge is suspect. Jerry Rice, T.O., Randy Moss, Marvin Harrison. You know what? And I have no problem with Coach going with Steve Largent. Steve Largent is low-key so underrated.
Yep.
He's way up. Because it's kind of like when you play in Seattle at the time and those Seahawks teams were mediocre at best, he gets overlooked. So I think he's a great pick. But if I'm going to pick my 5th, I'm going to go with Larry Fitzgerald.
Got it.
We're the same, but I'm gonna go with Larry Fitzgerald as my. I think Fitz was such a great route runner, such a competitor, great hands, like the big body. Like Fitz was not as fast as T.O., but after the catch, his yak, Fitz ran like a running back after the catch, like just a great player all the way around, like and a true pro, right? There was many rumors and opportunities where Fitz could have gone to other places, never wanted to leave. Stayed true to the colors. Just one of my favorite players all time.
Yep. Larry Fitzgerald is better than Steve Largent. I just had to give a respect to Steve Largent, man.
I'm with you.
I could have threw Torrey Holt up and now, but he's not a top 10 wide. He's not a top 5 wide receiver. But I threw the 5th and now just respect because I love Torrey Holt too. I used to be, like I say, before the Texans came back in 2002. I used to be a Rams fan and watching Torrey Holt and Isaac Bruce run up that damn football field and burn.
Coach, I'm with you.
Burn DBs.
Coach, Isaac Bruce is actually one of my favorite players. I like both of them. I would say this: if you said best receiver tandems all time, I think they got to be in there.
Cool say he have logical Marvin Harrison. Tell y'all, Steve Largent was a badass dude. Man.
Nothing wrong with that decision. Cool, I like that pick.
Steve Largent was a bad fucking dude, bro. Y'all tripping on that dude.
And let's not forget honorable mentions. Steve Smith. Steve Smith was great.
Yep.
Jimmy Smith played a long time for the Jaguars. Very underrated. Jimmy Smith was great. There are some guys that we kind of forget about over time. Look, I was not a fan of this team. And I think because as the league has changed and the rules have changed and receivers put up insane numbers now, he gets forgotten about. But in his prime, I was talking about his peak. And because of the era he played in, Michael Irvin was a great receiver.
Yep.
He was a great receiver. He was a great receiver. Physical, could use his body, and he was money in the red zone. I'm just saying, I'm not a Cowboy fan, but respect is due to the playmaker. He was a great receiver.
Yeah, Jerry, the Texans came back in 2002, legitly 2002. That was the expansion franchise. Yes, and then I went back to, I switched over to Houston because Houston, Texas. I'm from Houston, lived, born, raised all in my life. I was a Rams fan before actually Houston got back a franchise, and I used to watch Marshall Faulk, Torrey Holt. Kurt Warner used to work at a store and came out and won.
I remember that.
He used to work at a grocery store and came out winning the MVP. And they had so many weapons, bro. Even when you got them shut down, they just pop you just like that. You know, it's just like when you're boxing and all of a sudden you think you're giving that person all the work. You think you doing enough to keep Mike Tyson off you, and all of a sudden, bam, they hit you with that one punch and you gone. That's how the Rams offense was. The greatest show on turf. That's how the offense was. They pop you one of them. You ain't stopping the bleeding on that part. But go ahead, Des.
Oh no, you guys got great points, man. And I know I'm a youngin in the game, but I got to go with 4 out of the 5. I say 5 just because my generation. Calvin Johnson, I think, changed the game too. You can't forget about Calvin Johnson. I mean, I feel bad he didn't even get a dang ring because that guy played with a physicality that couldn't be matched at that time. Has all the accolades. I think he's in the Hall of Fame, right? If I'm not mistaken. Is he in the Hall of Fame?
I don't think he's there yet. I don't think he's in that yet, but I respect him.
He should be though. Honorable mentions though, Steve Smith. I like Steve Smith. He was dirty, man. He played with a physicality that couldn't be matched. Especially in the slot. I think that evolved the slot receiver game for sure. But you guys touched on all good points. You guys took most of my guys, but top 5 receivers, man. That's my top 5 for sure.
Steve Smith was a short, old, physical person, bro. That dude used to whoop everybody at practice. If you get a fight in him at practice, you're not winning that fight. If you get in the fight in him, that dude was one physical guy. I never seen no one that was explosive and physical as him. To be that small, to play receiver, and you normally when you have and he was the number one. He was the number one. He was the number one. And was jumping over people and would catch the ball and he was very fast. So other than that, I'm gonna start with you. I'm gonna start with you on this one, Mo. Start, cut, bench. Mahomes, Brady, or Montana?
Woo.
Dang.
Look, I can't do it. It's sort of like you showing respect to Steve Largent. I'm a Niners fan from when I was a kid, so I didn't come on board when they were good. When I was a kid, they had this quarterback named Steve DeBerg. I don't know if you guys ever heard of him. He wasn't a great quarterback, but he was one of those guys that was just good enough to make them somewhat mediocre. Joe Montana came in, and I know a little bit about him as a kid, but watching him play, there were times when he just made the game look easy, but he made it look easy when there was 2 minutes left in the game and they were down 3. He made it look easy then. I just never saw the guy rattled. He didn't get rattled. Teams sometimes can beat themselves, or you have a great quarterback who will throw that bad interception. Joe Montana never did that. So I'm going to say I'm not cutting Joe Montana. I'm not going to do that.
Okay.
So I'm gonna start Joe Montana because he didn't need a tuck rule to help him out, and he didn't need no guy to be filming stuff to help him out. Just saying, look, we can get into that debate with anybody out there listening, but cheating is cheating. I'm just saying, I'm never gonna get over the commissioner stepping up to a camera with a straight face and saying, "Well, I destroyed the tapes for the good of the league." I never heard of that before. What do you mean destroy the tapes? I want to see them damn tapes. Clearly, you destroyed them because there was a lot wrong going on them tapes. They must have had some really heinous stuff on them for you to destroy them. That's crazy. So look, I think Tom Brady is the most accomplished quarterback ever. No debating that. You win 7 Super Bowls. Nobody's gonna ever debate that or argue that. So I have no problem with people calling him the GOAT. He's not my GOAT, but I have no problem with people calling him the GOAT. I can't give Mahomes the edge because his resume is just shorter. I can't go off of what he might be. I can only go off of what he is right now. So if I'm comparing careers, he's got to get cut.
All right, Des, go ahead.
Dang, Mo, put that in some perspective right there, man. God, woo, what, Mo? All right, so if I had to start, I have to put Joe Montana. Honestly, all the accolades, the way he made the game easy. Even though I'm a 97 baby, I watched him on this guy, and this guy he was the Mahomes before Mahomes, to be honest with you. So I got to start Joe Montana. I got to bench Tom Brady. I know it's going to sound crazy, but the guy got all the accolades. But like Mo said, Once you're a cheater, always a cheater. There's no dang way who the deflate gate and all the other stuff like that. How you got to deflate the balls just to win a dang football game, and you win 7 Super Bowls. And then I don't want to cut Mahomes, but like Mo said, I mean his resume is just too dang short, in my opinion. And I feel this year or next year, teams are starting going to catch up to the Chiefs. They're getting a little bit too cocky, like I said, and they're going to catch up to the Chiefs.
He might win 5 more Super Bowls. I'm not knocking what Mahomes might be, Des. He might win 5, 6 Super Bowls. He may end up being surpassing Brady. It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
But look, if we're talking about talent, right? Not just their careers, but just talent.
He's the better quarterback.
On talent alone, I'm starting Mahomes.
He's the better quarterback.
Because Mahomes can do some stuff that's impromptu that you'll never see. He's the kind of guy. He kind of like is when AI started crossing people up. Mahomes is a quarterback that can cross you over. He goes against everything you're taught. Don't throw across your body. I seen the man throw a pass, and he was falling to the ground. Barely saw the receiver and completed it. I saw him shuffle pass with his left hand with a defender holding on to him 10 yards for a first. Patrick Mahomes is the most talented, gifted, impromptu quarterback I've ever seen, bar none. Aaron Rodgers is terrific. He ain't Patrick Mahomes.
Yep. So I'm going to go with the scenario you guys have said, only because his career is not even over with yet. And when his career is over, he will be on this list. He will be on this list as the greatest quarterbacks of all time. And he will be in this position to this day for our starting. I seen a lot of highlights of Joe Montana winning, but I haven't actually seen him play in person. So I'm gonna go with Tom Brady. Start, and I'm gonna bench Montana because I actually saw Tom Brady at his best play football, and the dude was dominant. But other than that, Patrick Mahomes got a whole career ahead of him, and Dez got an issue with Patrick Mahomes. Hey, I don't mind him being cocky. You got to beat him. If you can't beat him, then he can be cocky all day long. If you can't beat him, I love
that about Patrick Mahomes.
I like him as a player. Don't get me wrong, but it's
him and Travis Kelce. I love how cocky they are.
True. I'm just saying, eventually, not now, but down the line, we're probably talking about 4 to 5 years from now. Somebody's going to catch up to the Chiefs. The dynasty's going to end. That's all.
I don't know, Dez. I just know the man just won a Super Bowl with a bunch of number 2 receivers. I've never seen nobody pull that off.
No doubt. I'm saying 4 to 5 years is going to go back down.
I mean, hasn't helped the rest of the league if he goes out at some point and gets another number 1 receiver. Like, I don't. You can't predict health, but assuming he doesn't ever suffer a major injury, I think Patrick Mahomes is going to end up being the GOAT when it's all said and done. Now that this is premature, this is like a prediction, but I'm saying when it's all said and done, he's going to be that dude.
Hey, Dez, you remember you said I know Mo, you can attest to this though, but and everybody in the chat, you know how many times people say they were going to figure Floyd Mayweather out, and how many times people did figure him out? They never figured him out.
That's true.
How many times someone said they're going to figure out Tom Brady? How many times they figured him out? They couldn't figure him out. Well, the Giants figured him out, but he still ended up winning 7. You know how many times someone said they're going to figure out Pat when they thought they had Patrick Mahomes figure out what still happened? Even on we went into the season literally thinking this may be the Chiefs' worst year. And what the hell he does, he take a bunch of number 3s to the Super Bowl and 7 rookies to the Super Bowl. You can say he's going to get figured out, but it's better said in doing it. And I'll be tired of seeing the same team. I really do. But hey, I beat them. We gotta beat them. You gotta end up beating them. The
Broncos gonna end the streak. They
gonna win the division, so they must gonna win the division then. Huh? They must beat them.
I don't know about all that, man. I don't know.
You said it.
Dez, I think your team's gonna be pretty good.
Yep.
Oh yeah. I think we at least beat them once. I think that's my prediction. We're gonna beat them once this year.
Yeah,
we got to beat them because they've been a streak.
There we go, Diz. That would be Denver Super Bowl if you beat them once, huh?
That's a lot of teams Super Bowl against Kansas City. The regular season.
I'm just playing with that.
Oh man, I love me some Mahomes though, man. I love me some Mahomes, man.
So I used to do that. God rest his soul. I never thought I would do it. I cried like a dog when Kobe died, but one thing I didn't like, I couldn't stand Kobe. I couldn't stand Kobe at all. But I always respected him as a player, man, because Kobe got that type of arrogance and that type of game. Like I wish I could come through the TV and slap him in his face. Slap him in his face, because that's how good he was, though.
Yeah,
but I respected him.
A lot of players felt that way too.
Yes, and his teammates did. Sponge Parker came out and said he hated him. He didn't like him. But hey, Kobe wanted to win though. If you gonna come on the team, you gonna get the best of Kobe. You gonna try to win. He ain't gonna stand for that losing. He kind of like a second Michael Jordan. If he can punch you or elbow you to get the best out of you, then he would do it. And that's how Kobe was. I hated that dude.
He wasn't trying to make friends. He
wasn't
not
at all.
He wasn't trying to hang out after games and make friends or bond like that. The guy was basketball 24/7, 365 is all he thought about. It's one of the main reasons why him and Shaq clashed, because he got pissed because Shaq wasn't nearly as dedicated as he was.
Yo, anytime E. Key says did not like Kobe. I didn't like him at all. I didn't like him at all. It's just kind of like every time I see him through the TV, I just like to slap him in his face at once. I wish I would slap him in his face, but I love his.
I love his game. I'm a Laker fan, diehard. But I'm not. So there are Kobe fans. I always explain this to people. They're Kobe fans and they're Laker fans.
Yeah.
I didn't like Kobe, but damn it, if I didn't love watching that dude go to work on the court, he did have an arrogance about him. Like you could talk about his commitment to the game, but there was something about him that just came across, and I think he knew it, because I think that's just who he was. He was arrogant, but he could back it up.
And that's why I respected his game. That's why I respected his game that much more. And I cried like a dog because, again, that dude meant something to the game of basketball. He meant a lot. He touched a lot of people. He teached a lot of people. His daughter was coming up. His daughter was good, was very good. His daughter was going to be something. Gigi was going to be something, and I believe she was going to really be something. And that was just a tragic story. So, other than that, we go to Jordan Love. We go to the Green Bay Packers. I'm gonna start with you, Des. Will Jordan Love lead the Green Bay Packers to the playoffs? Matter of fact, I'm gonna give you an over and under total. So the Packers won. They were 8-9 last year, right? They go over or under 8-9. Over or under for Jordan Love Packers?
I say under 8 games. I just don't see it. We never seen this guy really play. I just seen him in preseason. I mean, he played a couple games last season, but struggled. And they don't really have wide receivers like that at all. I mean, they did some stuff in the draft. Don't get me wrong, but look what you lost in free agency. Look what you kind of added in the draft. I don't see the Packers winning. I see 7 games. That's my really prediction. And I think they have to go back to the drawing board after this offseason and try to really build around Jordan Love, because I think in the draft they tried to address it, but they didn't really address it. They just kind of put a Band-Aid on it. And even Packer fans are bracing for the Jordan Love era. And is it going to be a boomer or bust? And they're already saying it's going to probably be a bust. And as a Packer fan, they shouldn't be like that. But I just don't see it. It's not college for him. It's just the pros, and he struggled in the couple games I've seen last year.
Mo, over or under 8 wins?
Under. They're under, but I'll say this. I think because the bar is set so low for Jordan Love, if he has a competent season, meaning let's say he throws for 3,700 yards, 25 touchdowns, 10 or 11 picks, if he has a competent season, even if they go under, I think it gives the front office going forward optimism that he could be that guy. And so I think they'd be more aggressive in free agency the following season to put more playmakers around him, because you're going to have to spend money. But I think that what they're looking for from him is competency, consistency. Like if he has access to the whole playbook, which means they're going to throw 9 routes, deep crossing routes, everything, then that means they believe in him. But if you look at their playbook or just watch them play and it's watered down, a lot of dink and dunk, short routes, that says to me they see him as a game manager and not somebody that's a difference maker.
Yep. But and it's kind of interesting though. You heard rumors that when Aaron Rodgers was there, they were moving on from him. Though they were trying to move on from him at certain points of his career. It's kind of interesting though. We get a chance to see how good Jordan Love really could be. But just like Brett Favre, they moved on from Brett Favre when they thought Aaron Rodgers was going to be that guy. When they knew Aaron Rodgers was going to be that guy. And he's proved to win the Super Bowl, beat the Steelers. Would have Jordan Love been on the field already that you think if they knew Jordan Love could be any gooder than Aaron Rodgers, and it took Aaron Rodgers' decision to go to the New York Jets? I mean, I was a question that I want to ask you, Mo and Des. What if they want to move on Aaron Rodgers early? Because it was talks that they wanted to move on from Aaron Rodgers. Those were talks, and he was still able to win MVPs. And when they drafted Jordan Love, they gave him a signal that they were trying to move on. But next year, what he does, he comes out winning MVP. He came out like a raging bull. You hear it year after year. But do you get a sense if Jordan Love was really good, they would have moved on from him? Or do you think the Packers still was trying to take some time? Because they moved on from Brett Favre immediately. They waste no time moving on from him. And Aaron Rodgers proved to be that guy. So the question to you, if Jordan Love was really any type of good, would they have been moved on from Aaron Rodgers?
No, I think you're right, Coach. The answer to the question is, yeah, they would have moved on sooner. They clearly didn't see what they were looking for the past 2 seasons in training camp, off-season drills, even the little bit of playing time that he got. I think they have more concerns. I think they're coming into this season, they're saying all the right things, but I think they're concerned. Never mind the wins and losses. You in a quarterback-driven league, and you're trying to have a quarterback for the next 10 to 12 years, you need Jordan Love, like Kyle just said, he needs to show some form of promise that, hey, even if they're not a very good team, we're okay at the quarterback position. Maybe we need to get some playmakers on the outside, shore up the offensive. There's a lot of things that you can add, but if you're not secure at the quarterback position, it won't matter what your skill positions do because you ain't got the right guy to get the ball to him. So I think they are worried, Coach, and I think you're right. If he was ready, like Aaron Rodgers was ready, maybe a couple of years in advance he was ready, they would have already moved on. So I think they're in a hard place, and they're just hoping that if they go 6-11, it'll be because Jordan Love played well. Played well. That gives them signs that, okay, we've got the guy. He actually can be the guy going forward.
Go ahead, Des.
Mo touched on that point. You guys touched on that point right there. I think we had talked about this this week, where you can have everything set on your team, but if your quarterback is not set on your team, you don't have a team. You don't have a team at all. And Mo, you touched on it, and Coach, you touched on it too as well. I think the Packers are concerned. There's no reason. Right when he got drafted, Aaron Rodgers got mad about him getting drafted. Right then, he said, "Hey, I wasn't going to put him under my wing." I think with him sitting back, learning from Aaron Rodgers for the past 2 seasons is encouraging signs. The discouraging signs, and Mo, he touched on it too. The couple games he played last year, he was more of a turnover machine than throwing touchdowns. It was short in the playbook. I think they're just trying to brace the storm. I think, like we all touched on this, if they get 6 or 7 wins, that's a win for the Packers front office. They can build around Jordan Love, say, hey, you know what? We've seen some promise. We can build around you in free agency because they'll have the money to spend, especially with that cap space that they got away from Aaron Rodgers' contract this year. I think that they're just trying to see, hey, is it worth the investment? And if he is a bust, then they get at least a top 10 pick and plus the pick they got from the Jets to build around the draft. So it's a boom or bust, but it's a win-win situation for both sides. If Jordan Love doesn't produce, they have picks in the draft, then they can redevelop or 2 go into free agency. So I think Jordan Love has to show some promise. You have 2 years behind Aaron Rodgers. You don't have to be the all-star, but just be the guy and be consistent.
Yep, basically, Kyle hit the nail right on the head, as we've been saying. Packers should have moved on from Aaron Rodgers, but they was afraid of dealing him and posting a rebuild, and it was kind of some hesitancy on throwing Jordan Love out there. So Again, you would never know how good a player could be if you don't put him out there. If you don't, you never throw him out there. If you know you want to move on from your actual quarterback. Other than that, we go back to some NBA, and we got to talk about what's next for Damian Lillard, because after not requesting a trade, it makes me think he doesn't want to get up out of Portland. He's going to play with Scoot Henderson this year. And that will be another year of mediocrity for Portland again. So now you got 3 guards. You got Scoot Henderson. You got Damian Lillard. You got Anthony Simons. Jeremy Grant is a free agent. I don't know if he will come back or not. But Damian Lillard saga still continue, and we still talking about it throughout this day. Mo, I'm going to start with you. By him not requesting a trade, what does that lead to for Damian Lillard in the Blazers?
Look, I really do think that his heart is in Portland. I think he wants to stay in Portland. I really do believe that's where he wants to be. And I believe him when he says he wants to win a title there, but I think he knows he won't win a title there. But he's comfortable there. He's beloved there. His kids have grown there. Like, he's built a life there, and he's so ingratiated into that community that his heart is in Portland. Yeah, I ultimately, and I think the ownership feels the same way about him. We're on the outside, and we're like, if Dame wants to win a title, he's got to go. He knows that, and they know that. And my gut feeling is, if they don't decide to get up off him and say, Dame, we're going to move you, then he's not going to get moved. And in the big picture, he might not ever win a title, but if he stays in Portland, I honestly think he'll be happy. He may go to Miami, and that culture will fit him, and they'll have success. But I don't know if he'll be happy. My gut feeling is that Dame and the front office, it's one of those things when we're like, why don't they break up? They don't want to break up. They want to stay together.
It's like, again, he writing all these posters, giving you antics that he wants to win somewhere else. But in that, if you ain't gonna put no pressure on the front office, they're gonna come out and say, we trying to build this organization around Dame. We're trying to build a competitive team around Dame. The problem is nobody wants to come to Portland. You have not built the right team around Damian Lillard. That's just a fact. Even when you did have Wes Matthews, when you did have Marcus Aldridge, the team still wasn't good enough to win. The team still wasn't good enough to get past the Spurs or OKC. The team still wasn't good enough to win. Even on your best year, when you went to the Western Conference Finals, especially speaking on the person that we're about to talk about next, Damian Lillard did go to the Western Conference Finals and did get out the second round. Other than that, but the team still wasn't good enough. You wasn't convinced they were going to win a title at all, even though they should have had a chance to win that series, won at least 3 games in that series before they blew them all in the fourth quarter. But the roster was not strictly good enough around Damian Lillard. And it's not the fact I don't think he could be the best player on a championship team. It's just the organization wasn't good enough. The organization ain't good enough to win. I think he can contribute on a championship team. I'm not going to use, the bad Portland organization, to put a knock on them. But other than that, even with a LaMarcus Aldridge, I don't think that team was good enough to beat San Antonio. Yeah. And we got Gene in the building. We got Gene come popping in. What's good, Gene?
You said it, bro. You said it. I was waiting for the line.
What?
You said that Damian Lillard. How you feeling this morning, Coach? Let me just say hello.
I'm awesome. I'm great.
You said that it's not that Damian Lillard cannot be the best player on a championship team. And that's where I will disagree. I was listening this morning. I was driving home. I just got in. I heard the Dame Lillard discussion. And I'm now known as the Sports Empire Network's resident Dame hater. And I'm not. I love Dame.
Who said that?
I love Dame. Cottrell called me and told me that after the last time I was on the show.
Oh, okay.
I love Dame Lillard. I love him. He is not ever, not will, not never will be, never could be the best player on a championship roster. If he goes to Miami and they win a championship, it'll be because of Jimmy Butler, not Damian Lillard. I think that Dame Lillard is exactly where he should be. 8 through 20 in NBA throughout his whole career. I don't think he's ever been a top 8 player in the NBA, ever. And it's nothing against Dame. It's just we constantly give him excuses that we don't give other superstar athletes. But the team's not good enough around him. The team's not good enough. The GM didn't do it. So let me ask you guys a question real quick. And I don't mean to be smart when I say this, right? Let's take Joel Embiid off the Philadelphia 76ers, and let's take and look at his circumstances this past year with James Harden, Tobias Harris, and Tyrese Maxey and everybody else that was on that team. And you'd sit here and tell me that the team that they had in 2016 with LaMarcus Aldridge and CJ McCollum wasn't just as good. Remove Dame, remove Joel Embiid, and you tell me who's a better team between those two teams. And it's like we give Joel Embiid this criticism because he won MVP of the league, because he's great, and I get it. He deserves the criticism because he won MVP of the league. But Damian Lillard, it's just the narrative around him. CP0 rings? Like we hear that constantly, but we never hear it about Dame, right? Because the team's not good enough. And it's to me, it's blasphemous. So I need to come on every time I hear that. It's like a bat signal. I need to come on and just say, I love Dame Lillard. He's a great player. It's okay to be Brandon Roy. It's okay to be Grant Hill. It's okay to be a great player that's not top 7 that can't carry you to a championship.
But it's obviously that Jimmy Butler them is one player away. It's obviously they're one player away. And that team, when they got to the finals, they did get to the finals because of Jimmy Butler. And Bam also was a part of that success, averaging 17 points per game as well. So Jimmy Butler didn't get them there alone. You had the help of Caleb Martin too. Who should have been the MVP of the Eastern Conference Finals. Joel Embiid team was good enough. You had James Harden, who literally won them 2 games, and took them to a game 7. So again, they had a chance to win.
But I agree with you, Coach. Coach, everything you just said, I agree with. What I'm telling you is Dame Lillard is not Joel Embiid, and Dame Lillard is not Jimmy Butler. I don't think
Marcus Aldridge is not an MVP count, not an MVP player. He's never was close for an MVP player. So Portland never even came close to having a chance to win, even with LaMarcus Aldridge. So it's hard to say what roster is better. Plus, you had a tough, competitive Western Conference.
Yeah, but James Harden MVP isn't James Harden now.
And the Eastern Conference was way weaker. It's way weaker. So that the Sixers should have gotten by. Should have gotten by. Just like the Miami Heat, they have gotten by, but you never convinced they were going to win the finals, even with Jimmy Butler being the best player. I mean, you take off every team best player, every team is worse.
No. What I was saying was if you take Dame off that seat, the first year CJ McCollum got there, LaMarcus Aldridge was nearing the end, and Dame Lillard, that was their best opportunity, that 2016 team. So you take Dame Lillard off of that team and you take Joel off the 76ers. And I think Portland had a better team than the 76ers did. You mentioned the MVP comment, right? About James Harden being a former MVP. But James Harden, former MVP, isn't James Harden right now. I think we can all agree with that.
I agree.
So what I'm asking, and I would love to know Mo's feelings. I would love to know your feelings. I would love to know everyone's feelings on this, except in the bottom right corner. My Nuggets fan cannot give me any. I'm kidding. But I want to know if you take Embiid off the 76ers and take Dame off of that Portland team, what's a better overall team? The point I'm trying to make is this, right? Joel Embiid should be criticized for not getting that team to the finals because he's an MVP, because he's a top 5 player in the NBA. Dame Lillard doesn't get criticized because he's not an MVP. He's never been a top 5 player in the NBA. That's my point.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mo.
So we're in agreement with the most obvious part. I never thought Dame could be the best player in a title contender. I never thought he could be that. So I'm a fan, but I never thought he would be the best player, or you could say the best player on a title winner, however you want to put it. So we're in agreement with that. I don't know if you take Embiid off and you're leaving me with Harden, Harris, and Maxey versus CJ, LaMarcus Aldridge, and it was Nurkic there. I don't know who's actually the better team because I saw LaMarcus Aldridge at his very best, he didn't have a lot of playoff success. He had a few games, but overall, he wasn't one of the guys. He's one of those guys that put up numbers, but I would never call him heart and guts. So I really don't know who would be the better team. I'd actually think that I'd like to watch that series. That to me, that's a 7-game series.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dez.
I'm agreeing with all you guys. I could definitely, Gene, with his credit, if you take Joel Embiid off and you take Dame Lillard off, I got to say Portland. I think Portland's the better team. I mean, that was their championship window, the 2016 window. I think that was their championship window there.
Really?
And I just feel that, and I think Kyle put this in the chat, you got to put like Carmelo Anthony in that conversation. Great. They're both great players, but they're not like, top 10, top 20, players of the league. I just feel that they're great at their game, but they all have flaws. Every player has flaws. And I just feel that Damian Lillard and how Portland's set up right now, and you got to think about the coaching too. The coaching, that's an issue too. You can't put all the criticism on Dame, but we always talk about Dame about to leave. He's about to leave, but he wants to stay. And I think that the GM, I mean, they're not really, I mean, what are they going to do to build around Dame Lillard? I mean, you got Scoot Henderson, which plays the exact same position as Dame Lillard. So, and you got 4 guards. So now, like I said, I just don't know what Portland's going to do.
I apologize, by the way. I have to retract. It was the 2014-2015, not the 2015-2016 roster.
Oh, okay.
If you do want the roster around him, it was Aaron Aflalo, it was Nicholas Batum, it was Will Barton, it was Chris Kaman was still in there, Myers Leonard, Robin Lopez, Wesley Matthews. That was the roster around C.J. McCollum, Dame Lillard, and LaMarcus Aldridge. So.
And Damian Lillard then went to the Western Conference Finals with a worse roster. Him and CJ went to the Western Conference Finals with a worse roster, and that roster was better and was barely couldn't even get up out the second round. So, I mean, all have different points, and we all have the same points. So, I'll say again, we'll see what Damian Lillard will end up at. And if he's gonna stay in Portland, which is it leads me, he may stay in Portland. He does. He haven't came out, wanted out. Regardless, he haven't came out and said he wanted out, so he's stuck in Portland. So we go to the next topic when we go with Draymond Green. Draymond Green, Gene, is he worth $100 million? Is he worth $100 million at this stage of his career?
I mean, it depends on who's paying him the $100 million. So, like, if you're the Golden State Warriors and you're going over the luxury tax to pay him $100 million, oh well. I mean, like, I'm not crying for them. They have a brand new stadium and they're making a ton of money. It's not like they're running broke. Let me give you another team that he could be worth $100 million to. He could be worth, and I've said this all off season, I'll say it again. He could be worth $100 million to Dallas. If they sign Chris Middleton and Chris Middleton's healthy, and you have a big three of Luka, Chris Middleton, and Draymond Green, that could work. He could be worth $100 million there. But I mean, granted, to the other 28 teams in the NBA, no, he's not worth $100 million. Draymond Green is worth what his weight in gold if he's in the right system. But if he's not in the right system, right circumstances, he is not going to be very productive and not worth the $100 million.
Gotcha. Des.
Gene just took my point on that one. Dallas would be a great fit for him. If the Warriors go over the luxury tax, like Gene said, it's not going to be like, oh my God. I mean, they just bring the band back together, right? But if you're talking like a team like the Kings or all the other teams in the NBA that are looking for a Draymond Green that can add a savvy veteran, that can add a defensive presence, so be it. But we got to make sure he's healthy too, because he does have a little bit of an injury history as well. And with the league, with flagrant fouls like that, so the ego has to be checked out the door, and he has able to buy in. But I think Dallas would be a great spot. You put him with Luka, it has a defensive presence, and if he goes to the Warriors, you just bring the band back together. But you got to look at age too. Age is a factor in the NBA as well, and longevity. So if a team is willing to spend $100 million on a guy like that, so be it.
Remember, Al Horford got a 4-year, $100 million contract. I'm just saying.
From the Sixers, right?
We can sit on my Sixers front office.
No, I just said from the Sixers.
Yeah. I don't mind. That front office is terrible. Mo, I'm not kidding with you. You with no NBA executive experience could have done a better job with the 76ers from 2016 on now. It is literally impossible to do worse. They drafted Ben Simmons instead of anybody else behind them. They drafted Markelle Fultz instead of Jason Tatum. Like, you can go through it time and time. They traded for Jimmy Butler and then let him walk out the door. They maxed Tobias Harris. Guys, 76ers front office should be in jail for what they did from 2015 till now. In jail.
Picks behind the other.
No, that was the most funniest. You know what? That was the most funniest move that they did. That's why I say you don't draft need. You always got to draft a talented player. They went up because they needed a point guard instead of picking Tatum. Tatum, who was right there, who fell right there at 3, the spot that they were originally in, but they drafted need over the talent. You always draft the talent over the need. Always take the talented player, and that's one thing that hurt the Sixers all their career, is they always drafted the need instead of the talented guy.
The night they traded Bridges, they could have kept Bridges. Like that. How do you do that? Bridges' mom's was there. She was psyched. She just knew the Sixers.
He worked for the team.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. How do you mess that up?
She's like, you got traded. No.
I don't understand that, man. That's wrong.
Bro, that might be one of the hurt. I'm not kidding with you. That might be one of the most hurtful things that's ever happened. Like, listen, I don't even know. And the worst part is this, right? And I know the player, but I don't think you guys do. And I'm not trying to be rude when I say this, because like I watched a little bit of him in college. But for a trip to Hawaii, can you tell me who you got traded for?
You talking about Mikal Bridges?
Yeah.
Zion Williams, the one that went to Texas Tech.
I'm so glad he didn't get that right, because I wasn't going to give him a trip to Hawaii. It's Zaire Smith. But
Zaire Smith, I forgot. Zaire Smith. He played at Texas Tech, though.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, he played at Texas Tech, though.
But Zaire Smith, that's who he traded Mikal Bridges for.
Yep.
G League Zaire Smith.
Who was hurt, who was actually hurt during that time at Texas Tech.
Every opportunity to be the most successful team in the NBA. They had all the assets. They had Joel Embiid to build around. They end up hitting the number 1 draft pick 1 year, and then 2 out of 3 years, essentially, because they traded up for it. I will say this, though. Tatum was never going to the 76ers. That's a myth.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize this. The Boston Celtics were not going to trade back from 1 to 3 if the 76ers didn't assure them they were taking Markelle Fultz. That's why they did it. So that's a myth that needs to be solved. Like, Mythbusters need to get out there. But who I wanted the Sixers to take, who would have been just as almost a big a bust, which I love Josh Jackson coming out of Kansas. I thought he was going to be unbelievable. I was wrong there. Sorry, I got you off track.
No, you good. You good. I love it because it's actually funny.
Gene, you're not alone. I thought Josh Jackson was going to be a beast at the next level. So what do I know?
He's my favorite prospect. I'm like, he's way better than Tatum. I eat my words on that one, man.
I remember draft night. I was like, Tatum's not a dog like Josh Jackson.
I was the same way, bro.
Josh Jackson was the best player in college. He was actually the best player in college. As far as you look at how good that dude was defending, and that dude was the best player literally in college basketball. Literally the best player in college in the country. So go ahead, Mo. Your thoughts on Draymond Green?
No, I think Gene hit it on the head. It's where he's most valued at, the system he can fit best in. So I say you stay in Golden State. But if that scenario could ever be a real thing where he can actually pair him up with Middleton and Luka, Dallas at a minimum is going to the conference finals and maybe beyond, because he would do so much to alleviate pressure off of Luka, not to mention a power forward that can snatch a rebound and do a hard push in the open floor to get your offense started. That's something that goes underrated that Draymond does as well as anybody. And he's also, not a secret, the best screen setter in the NBA. So that scenario, if Mark Cuban can pull that off, and it's actually very possible if you can make Middleton an offer he can't refuse.
Yep, got you. So I didn't put this topic on now, Gene. So don't. I didn't put this topic on now.
It's not about the Lakers, is it?
No, it's not about the Lakers. It's not about it's not about the Lakers. We already just talked about it, and I'm pretty much sure Gene tired of talking about them as well as I'm tired I'm tired of hearing about him. I'm tired of hearing about him as well. Gene ain't the only one. But other than that, it's about the 76ers, though. It is about the 76ers. And could Joel Embiid want out after this season if things don't go right? So I'm gonna start. I'm gonna start with you first, Mo.
Of course. He's realistic. What is he now? 27, 28?
Yeah, 29.
Somewhere in that range. Look, and he's at the top of his powers. I don't think Joel Embiid, though, is going to be one of those stars that when he's 35, he's going to be playing at a high level. I think by that time, his body will have just broken down completely. So I don't think his window is another 6 years. And he might already know that. But why wouldn't he be frustrated? At some point, the idea of winning a ring, it gets to you, right? There's a pressure for somebody who's an MVP top 5 player that they feel. He may very well ask to be. It wouldn't shock me, but I will say this. When you get a player like that, they don't come along that often. When you get one like that and you're the front office, whoever you're dealing him to, you must go get a steal. Like you must going to get the Rudy Gobert trade times 2, maybe 3. Like they must going to give you like 8 or 9 number 1 picks and some players. I would have to get back a haul and then another haul to give up somebody like that because he is a unique talent. A big, what is he, 275, 280? With feet like that, his spin moves, his drop steps, smaller men can't make those kind of moves. His touch from 18 feet out, there are a lot of small guys that can't shoot like that. Like he can do anything from anywhere on the floor on both ends. My only problem with him sometimes is his motor just runs low sometimes, and it frustrates me. He drifts out to the 3-point line way too often for my satisfaction. Like he can win so many more games just being ugly. Staying in a restricted area and just being ugly. There is no one that can stop him. That man could shoot 20 free throws a game if he wanted to by just being aggressive. He's just that forceful offensively. So do I think he's going to ask for a trade anytime soon? I don't. I really don't. I think he'll grow more and more frustrated, but I don't think he's looking to leave Philly. I think he loves it there.
Des, I'm going to have Gene go last on this one. Go ahead.
I don't think he requests a trade. I agree with Mo, though. If he's unhappy, after a while, you think, hey, I'm getting a little bit older. My body's going to break down. And as a big man, their bodies break down quick. They do. We've seen it in the league. And we know that Joel Embiid has some injury history for sure. But they have to build a team around him that can shoot. I mean, we talked about this in the playoff series. Doc Rivers and his system did not work at all. I mean, you can't just have people shooting in the corner and just pick and pop. And Mo touched on it. If he got a little bit more aggressive, and the thing that frustrates me, like you said, Mo, his motor, he'll start up so high in the beginning of the game, and when it gets to crunch time, it kind of drifts a little bit, So I think not this year, but next year, I think they'll have a championship window. And that's me as a Nuggets fan. I think they'll at least get close to the finals if they build the roster around him and tell him, hey, use your size, man. And I think this year, and going into offseason, I think he's noticing that. But the age and saying, hey, if I'm not winning a title within the next 2 or 3 years, of course you're going to be frustrated. You may want to look and say, you know what, I want out of Philly. But I don't think he wants out of Philly if they don't win a title this coming up season.
See, I want to ask Gene this, though. What the reason why do you think it's the way defense is playing Joel Embiid, or do you think Joel Embiid can still be that player that can just go through anybody and just get a bucket? But do you think it's the way defense is actually playing him is making it harder for him, or you just think it's just him personally?
I think he's Charmin soft.
Okay.
And let me give you a little bit of I think he'll get tougher. He'll get thicker skin this offseason. I think Joel Embiid's somebody that responds very well to criticism.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
So Charles Barkley and Shaquille O'Neal called him out for not being the most dominant center in the league. And he went in there and just made a point. He responds very well to criticism. Daryl Morey, maybe a week after the season was over, had his post-season press conference and said Joel Embiid walked up to him and said, hey, be real with me. Like, what do I need to do? And Daryl Morey straight up told him, He's like, you've been awful in the playoffs, particularly the second round. He's like, I need the Joel Embiid that you are in the regular season in the playoffs. He has, and like a lot of people don't get this because they don't watch 82 games of Sixers basketball, which I fully understand that. But the system that is designed around him forces him to be on the outside of the paint. That's on coaching, right? You can't clog the lane when you have Tobias Harris, where his number one thing on how to score is to get to the paint. No one is worried about James Harden driving to the lane if Joel Embiid's already clogged there and your center is already there. So the drive and dish is taken away. Tyrese Maxey's most efficient play is driving to the rim. You can't do all that if you're clogging the lane, which is why Al Horford might have been the worst signing in the history of the world when the 76ers tried signing him and pairing him with Joel Embiid. You guys got to really be honest with yourself. The 76ers organization has failed this man, has failed him year in and year out. Kyle said it earlier, right? He said they drafted Jahlil Okafor, Nerlens Noel, and Joel Embiid back-to-back seasons. 3 straight years they drafted 3 centers coming out.
Yeah, in a row. They
drafted Markelle Fultz and Ben Simmons. Those are all top 3 picks, guys. Well, Nerlens was 6. Okafor was 3. Embiid was 3. Markelle Fultz was 1, and Ben Simmons was 1. And when you look at the 76ers organization, to kind of answer your question, I don't care if he asked out. I don't blame him. I don't blame the organization. I think they need a complete reset. I think you take another shot this year and see what you can do. But I'm not in their front office. I don't get to make those moves. They're going to go re-sign James Harden and pay him a ton of money to be the player he was in 2015. That's not who he is now.
Yep.
So I'm not in that front office. So after they fail again this year, because insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, after they fail again this year, and it will be someone's injury, it'll be something that happens, yeah, I don't mind if he asked out. I'll build the team around Tyrese Maxey. What fears me more than anything is them giving James Harden a long-term contract and not being able to move on from it. I don't want that. So do I think Joel Embiid opts out? I don't care. How's that sound?
Hey, that sounds realistic right there. That sounds a little bit like realistic right there. So other than that, I want to get one more thing before we get up out of here for Gene. Start bench cut. If you know.
Yeah.
Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Montana.
You're starting Tom Brady. Anybody that's not starting Tom Brady.
I said the same thing. I started.
Come on, guys. And what you're asking now is, do I project Patrick Mahomes to have a better career than Joe Montana? That's kind of where I'm at, right? And the answer is yes. I project him to have a better career than Joe Montana.
Yeah.
So nothing against Joe. Joe did it in a different era. And I think in football, the errors matter a little bit more than they do in different sports. Like, I feel like Kareem and Wilt and a lot of those 60s and 70s players would still be absolute assassins in today's game. I think they would be dominant. I think they would be awesome. But when you look at, and then listen, Joe was great, right? But I don't think Joe Montana would be, and this is going to sound real ridiculous, but in today's game, I don't think Joe Montana would be anything crazier. I think he'd be like a step up from Matt Stafford, a step up from Derek Carr.
That is crazy.
It's fine. That's fine.
I'm just saying, in this era where everybody throws 4,000 yards, like it's easier. They've made it easier to put up numbers. There's a reason why running backs are devalued, because quarterbacks and receivers have been elevated. Not to mention the way they've changed the rules.
I completely agree with you.
In this era, if you don't throw for 4,000 yards, it better be because your quarterback runs for 700 or 1,000 yards. Like
Matt Stafford's thrown for 5,000 yards.
Right, and many have. But I mean, Matt Schaub throw for 4,000 yards multiple seasons.
So where would you put Joe Montana in his prime in today's NFL?
If you put him in his prime in Candyland, where their receivers can run free without getting murdered, Joe Montana's going to put up as many big numbers as anybody else. Like, I would just say this.
As anybody else? Or would he be the best quarterback in the NFL?
Why wouldn't he be? There's no reason to be. If he can do it in Murderville, he can do it in Candyland. Yeah, I think Joe Montana statistically would put up as big a numbers as a lot of guys who have huge numbers. Ben Roethlisberger, he has huge numbers, but I don't think he's better than Joe Montana. I think Joe Montana would put up.
Joe
better
Montana
numbers.
is better comparatively speaking of error versus error. What I'm asking, I think Joe Montana is the third greatest quarterback ever to play the game. Let me be clear. I'm just saying that his skill set in today's NFL is just different. The guys that are coming out now are just different, physically different. I get what you're saying, but I don't think he would be better than Manning in this era. I don't think he'd be better than Brady in this era. I don't think he'd be better than Mahomes in this era. I just don't. I think he would
be better
be
than both Mannings. He already got something that neither one of them got. Like more times than not, Peyton crumbles late in games. That's just what he does. Peyton crumbles.
And Joe doesn't.
So what he does?
I agree.
The one thing that the one time Peyton Manning won, well, he won 2 Super Bowls, but at his peak, at the height of his powers, he was a sidekick. He didn't do anything. He didn't do nothing. He didn't do a damn thing. Like Peyton Manning, and the funny thing is, he's considered maybe the smartest quarterback, the guy that can dissect defenses, and he's all those things in the regular season, and then in the playoffs, he's a different dude. So what I would say that separates Joe from a lot of things is when it matters most, because a lot of people put up numbers in the playoffs. Who would be better in the postseason? I'll put him up there with anybody in a postseason game.
It is unacceptable how much talent Peyton Manning had and only kind of won 2 Super Bowls.
Harrison, Reggie Wayne are both going to be in the Hall of Fame at some point. Well, Reggie Wayne should be in the Hall of Fame at some point. Edgerrin James is already
a lot of those great teams he lost to Brady.
Yeah,
a complete team. And Brady's the greatest of all time.
Well, I mean, it helps when Ty Law is just basically beating the hell out of Marvin Harrison and not letting him off the line of scrimmage. I mean, it helps when you've got somebody like that doing that. I'm just saying.
You have the greatest coach of all time and the greatest quarterback of all time on the other side.
I think Bill Belichick is deserving of that title. I won't argue that.
So my point being is, if Peyton Manning was in a different era, let's just say he started his career right now in this era without Tom Brady, I think that Peyton Manning would have a better career than Joe Montana if they started in this era.
I think Peyton would have the same amount of Super Bowls as he got now, maybe less. I think if Joe Montana played in this era, he'd have more Super Bowl championships than Peyton Manning. He'd be valued more than Peyton Manning. Eli Manning, who's not the better Manning, but he's got more of this than his brother does. I'm just saying it. I can never do numbers because the numbers in this era are silly numbers. They're silly
Correct.
numbers.
You're
Average
right.
quarterbacks throw for 4,000 yards. They're silly. So I can't do numbers. I'm not never going to say that Tom Brady's not great. I'm just saying that it's always hard. Look, I think football might be the hardest sport to make comparisons to because what they played in the 80s and how the game is played, it's not even night and day. I mean, in the 80s, quarterbacks could get picked up and suplexed to the ground. It's so much has changed now. Now you got to grab them like you're playing two-hand touch. They've given DBs these small target zones where it's okay to hit somebody. Like that's why there's more broken tackles. Like they've just watered it down so much. And it's amazing to me that the defenses can still adjust and be effective somewhat because they've put everything in favor of the offensive players. So I'm not going to hate on the great players of today, but if you take a truly great quarterback, it doesn't have to be Joe Montana. It could be Steve Young. It could be Dan Marino. And you drop them in this era, they're going to be more than fine. They're going to be just as great, if not greater.
Oh, Montana's era was 14 years before Manning's, right? Like the prime of their careers. You would say about 14 years?
Joe's in the 80s.
I think that Peyton Manning almost doubles him in touchdown passes throughout their career. Now, I know the errors from the 80s to the late 90s, early 2000s were different, but to double him in touchdown passes, I get the errors have changed a little bit, but over 15 years, they didn't change that much to have 540 touchdowns versus 270.
It changed massively. It's not even remotely the same league. It changed massively. And
it changed massively from 2023 until
Peyton Manning is a stick. If he played in the 80s, he didn't even have the same career because he didn't last as long. He didn't even last as long because they're not grabbing people. If we're hitting, if the Leonard Marshall hit never happens to Joe Montana, who knows? But
Yeah.
the idea that Peyton would be better, and he's never experienced that kind of physicality, or his receivers would be better. Like, we're talking about how great Marvin Harrison and Reggie Wayne are. They're not nearly as great if they come across the middle and they catch a Ronnie Lott medicine ball. It changes everything. Receivers today, they play with a lot more freedom than the other ones play with. I don't know how good Jefferson would be. Jordan Jefferson would be
Dan,
if he
but
played
Dan played in that same era, right? Dan Marino played in that same era.
And Dan Marino put up a lot of numbers, and I
He
give
had
him a lot of
150
credit.
more touchdowns than Joe Montana.
He played in a pass happy offense, not the same thing. Joe Montana actually played with running backs that rushed for over 1,000 yards. What 1,000-yard running back did Dan Marino ever play with? What 1,000-yard?
I follow what you're saying. You're talking about Roger Craig and Ricky Waters.
And Ricky Waters and Wendell Tyler. I'm just talking about balance. It's not my fault that Don Shula told Dan Marino throw the ball 50 times. If he wanted to do it, he did it. All I'm saying is, it
seems like you're very passionate. Are you a 49ers fan?
Sure. I grew up that way. But I'm just saying, in a numbers game, Marino's got a ton of numbers. He ain't got no rings. The one Super Bowl he showed up for was his last Super Bowl. So he puts up a lot of numbers. He was a great player, but he ain't got no rings to show for it.
But see, if rings are the only thing that we're looking at.
Well, I'm not looking at just rings. I'm just saying there's your career. There's your
why
ring.
wouldn't Terry Bradshaw be up on someone's top 5?
Well, I think that most people that view Terry Bradshaw think that he was the quarterback for one of the greatest teams of all time. But I don't think nobody thought that he was the quarterback that led them to them Super Bowls.
So Mo,
all-time great defense, one of the all-time great running backs.
The Niners didn't have an all-time great defense. They didn't have the greatest receiver. They didn't have the greatest receiver ever to play the game.
Right. He's one of the greatest receivers. I have Jerry Rice as the greatest receiver. I have Jerry Rice as maybe the greatest football player. Look, Jerry Rice is the all-time great.
Okay. So what we're saying is we had the greatest receiver ever, one of the greatest defenses ever, and one less Super Bowl than Terry Bradshaw.
Well, he have the same amount of Super Bowls as Terry Bradshaw.
No, Terry's got 5. Joe's got 4.
Terry Bradshaw doesn't have 5. He's got 4.
Pretty sure he's got 5.
No, trust me when I say it. He got 4. Joe got 4. And all I'm saying is that era is different. It's easy to try to make comparisons, but when
you're right, he's got 4.
You're asking me about why Terry Bradshaw isn't one of the top 5 quarterbacks all time. I would ask any of you because you probably have the same reason that I have. I don't have him top 5.
That's why I'm telling you
that. Who has Terry Bradshaw top 10?
No, I don't. And I think the point that I'm trying to make is that I think that the errors are just a little bit different than what they are. And I think that you look at quarterbacks like Fran Tarkenton, who's one of the first to really like sling the rock, right? He was the first gunslinger that we've seen, late 70s, early 80s, Fran Tarkenton. You didn't have gunslingers like that in the 70s and 80s. And I don't know what Joe Montana would have done in today's NFL where they were gunslinging the rock and they didn't have they had these cornerbacks and these wide receivers that were incredible. Without Jerry Rice, you have Joe Montana, who I think that is great, and I have him listed as the 3rd greatest quarterback ever to play the game. But if we're being honest with ourselves, I just don't think his career, I think if him and Mahomes started in the NFL at the same time, he wouldn't be better than Patrick.
Well, right, but that's an if was a fifth. I don't know. What I do know is if we're going to do it that way, when it's all said and done, I actually think Mahomes is going to be the greatest of all time. I do. I really think he will be when it's all said and done.
I'm all right with that. And it's nothing against the quarterbacks of the 70s and the 80s. I just don't think that any of them had the skill set or the arm talent that essentially would compete with the quarterbacks that are playing today. I just think it's so much more advanced.
Kyle kind of said something that I said. I think he would do fine because Drew Brees did fine. He didn't have a monster arm. I think Joe would be fine. I think that Joe would appreciate.
I think Drew Brees is the perfect comparison.
I think Joe would be great in this era because one, he's not getting beat up. His career would last longer. Maybe he plays.
No, you walked yourself into a corner here. If he's Drew Brees, he has 1 Super Bowl.
No. I'm talking about the skill set. I'm not talking about they're the same guys. Joe Montana was a Super Bowl champion before Jerry Rice ever came into his life. So it's not because of Jerry Rice.
I didn't say that.
He was already a champion before Jerry Rice came into his life.
Nobody said that. Nobody said he wouldn't win a Super Bowl. Nobody said. I just think that if you're comping him to today's NFL, he's more of a Drew Brees than he is a Tom Brady.
I don't know if that's a bad thing or not. I just think
it's a bad thing. 1 Super Bowl versus 7.
I have one guy rated ahead of both of them. So he's comparable to Drew Brees, but he's much better than Drew Brees. So, you know what I'm saying?
It's fair.
Yep. All right. So shout out to everybody, man. In this morning shoot, that was a hell of a debate, man. Hey, that what you do. Hey, you let it go. I let it go, man. Two respectable guys, everybody over here. Me and Dad's just watching it. And hey, man, like I say, this is the greatest thing about sports, man. Great debates, man. Bring the best out of each other, man. So really love it, man. So Mo, tell the people they can follow you at, man. That was a hell of a debate, man.
You guys can find me here at the Empire with you guys. Love having you guys on. Gene's my guy. I got no more respect for anybody on here than Gene because he's that dude.
Yep.
I respect you too, bro. And honestly, I didn't fully know you were a 49ers fan going into that argument, and I kind of caught it the moment the passion came out. And I love it, bro. I love it. Listen to me. I am not going to sit and pretend I watched Joe Montana's whole career. I was not born for some of it, right? Like I can't, but I'm just going off of what I've seen and like how I've seen it. You've seen his whole career. So like, I respect your opinion. I digress to it. I didn't watch his whole career. I watched a lot of stats and a lot of the end of his career. I seen him play for the Kansas City Chiefs at the end of his career. And I seen him play the last Super Bowl when I was 6 years old. You know, like I was a kid.
I feel you.
So I'm just going by what I've seen through, you know, watching a lot of old games and what I've seen as far as arm. Not saying I'm 100% right on this one. You have a little bit more knowledge of Joe Montana's whole career than I do.
Yeah, that's why I actually picked Tom Brady because I really fully watched, Joe Montana, but highlights. So I picked Tom Brady, someone, that I have watched since 2000 era. So Des, telling people they can follow you, man.
Sports Empire Network, my YouTube channel. I put some content yesterday. The Rockies are terrible, losing again last night, 5-0. Put some content on the YouTube channel. I love this Sports Empire team, man. Love it. The Michael Jordan debate. It was fun to see yesterday, so definitely find me there.
Oh yeah, man. Gene, tell the people they can get you at. Where they can get you at.
Tonight, baby, Wire to Wire Sports Podcast, 7 p.m. We got a lot of things going on Sports Empire Network. Let me just kind of run you through them real quick. Pre-game, Pigskin will be back in 3 weeks. Birds Deep has just been signed to Sports Empire Network, so it will be an Eagle show from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Wow. That starts in 3 weeks. I'm talking to Doug about an East meets West or Philly versus
I love it.
Oh, that'll be good.
That'll be great.
So for the Eagles versus Cowboys, we're talking to Doug about doing that. We got a show that's going to be merged between the Guys Podcast. It's called the Guys Empire. It'll be the Guys Podcast and Sports Empire Network. That'll be Thursday nights at 10 p.m. starting next Thursday. We got a lot going on right now.
That's going to be tight.
So I cannot wait to get more and more into this. Love hopping on here anytime I get a chance. So I wasn't planning on hopping in here this morning. Came home from my chiropractic appointment, and I heard the Dame Lillard talk. I had to hop in. But tune in tonight, Wire to Wire Sports Podcast, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We got our top 10 safeties. Who's y'all number one safety in the NFL right now? Am I allowed to ask y'all that?
Yep. Go ahead, Mo.
My top 10.
No, just give me number one. You ain't gotta give me the top.
Number 1?
Yeah, who's the number one safety in the NFL this year? Because we've been doing our list all day. I mean, some people think it's Derwin, some people think it's Minka, Kevin Byard. There's a lot of guys to choose from.
You know what? Because I'm a big fan, I'm gonna go with Minka Fitzpatrick. I think he's
Love
the guy. That's my guy.
I'm gonna go with Kevin Byard.
Kevin Byard is underrated.
That dude is nice. That dude is great. The dude is nice. Go ahead, Des.
Oh, I don't agree with you, Coach. Kevin Byard, he's a dog, man. He's just a different animal, man. I'm a big fan of him for sure. I
got to go with Derwin. Derwin's number one on my list, but
can't go wrong with that.
I'll let y'all tune in tonight to hear the other 9. Myself, Bill, and Cottrell will be unveiling our safeties list, as well as the MLB All-Stars. We're going to pick what our starters should be, not this joke, this fan voting joke. That bothers me, man.
That dude bothers a lot. So, no introduction for me, man. Y'all know who y'all going to be. I ain't hard to find. We getting ready to have college football is on the way back. So, on the Sports Network, we get ready to have the college football show coming back. We do got the baseball show with me, Kyle with me, Kyle Thibodeau and Aaron Riley coming up. We did the first episode last weekend. We're gonna be talking about baseball a lot. And like I say, y'all can find me doing every other thing. WNBA boxing, a big boxing match come up. Y'all can find me doing everything. But as for Coach Dante, Mo, we got Dez, and we got Gene. Y'all tune in to Wire to Wire today. Y'all find out who those top 10 safeties is. That's going to be interesting right now. And as long as you don't put a Raven up and now, then hey, it'll all be up.
Kyle Hamilton is really already on that list.
I wanted that dude during the draft. He was in my drafts at number 2, and I said, give me that. I wanted that dude, but then he started dropping because of the combine numbers and pro day. He started dropping. That dude is great. That dude is legit. So make sure y'all hit that like, y'all hit that share, and y'all know y'all will see the next morning show. That is tomorrow. We also got NBA free agency, which I will be covering all through that Friday. So shout out to everybody, man. Empire Sports Network. We'll see you guys the next morning.